Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and tonight I went to something that AMC is calling Screen Unseen, which is basically where you buy a ticket to see a mystery movie that is not yet released, and it turned out to be the Book of Clarence, which is something that I've seen trailers for, but I didn't quite know what I was walking into when I saw this movie. And yeah, quick little anecdote. I did not grow up religious. I didn't come from a religious household of any kind, so I don't quite have a lot of. I don't quite know what to think when it comes to religious media. Like I only know of those more extremist evangelical type studios that push out God's Not Dead 15 or something, and you see them on the Walmart shelves and stuff. So when I see a trailer for this movie, I couldn't quite tell, like, is this a satire, is it a parody, is it kind of doing like a Mel Brooks thing? I couldn't quite tell what I'm looking at here, and the truth is a little bit of both, but also very serious. So basically what we're dealing with here, and the trailer tells you this, basically they are this guy is he's a weed dealer, like an old Jerusalem selling weed. And he had borrowed money from the wrong guy, and he has about 30 days to pay back that money, otherwise they said they're gonna crucify him, but basically like, yeah, we're gonna kill you if we don't get our money back, right? So he ends up coming up with this long con where he sees Jesus and all of his followers, one of which is actually his twin brother, and they have like that personal relationship struggle there where his brother is an apostle and he's not, because he doesn't believe in Jesus and all that, right? Which, they kind of push on a lot of the satirical elements you can do with that, because like, imagine that this is happening in real time and you're just a third party watching this guy parade around town, and you're like, what? So they do put a lot of jokes in there like that. Anyways, so his big plan to get this money back is to essentially mimic what Jesus did, create this new Messiah persona, and create his own mythology where he has his friends pretend to be blind, pretend to be dead, pretend to be this and that, and kind of mimic all of the miracles, and he'll just collect money from people that way. But along the way, he ends up, of course, having some character development, becoming an actual decent person. He ends up freeing a bunch of gladiators that were enslaved at this camp. It's Roman times, right? And he basically ends up becoming an actual good person. But the Romans, of course, eventually come along and they want to collect all the messiahs, and they're like, well, hey, until we find the actual Jesus, you'll do, right? And he doesn't give up any information on where Jesus is, and this is kind of where the movie takes like this weird, I don't know if it's like a weird turn or if it was just for me, because I grew up in a not necessarily religious thing, so I didn't know how to take this. But for the most part of the movie, they're doing a somewhat satirical, jokey kind of vibe. Sometimes it gets a little artsy, like they go to this place and they smoke from these big hookahs, and they're getting high, so like it shows them literally floating, so it's kind of just a funny, like spoofy kind of thing going on, right? But then other times the movie will suddenly get real, like they'll have like real serious conversations, actual emotional dramatic moments, and it's kind of shifting in between those. And this whole third act, which it is the crucifixion, you would think that in a movie that's been, up until this point, somewhat jokey with the occasional serious moment and actual character development, so you're like, okay, they're striking a good balance here. They don't hold back on the crucifixion moment, not even a little bit. And it's not like played for a joke. It's not like oh, they're kind of just gonna glaze over this part and be like, okay, he's just getting crucified, we get it. No, they full on do all the screaming and the blood, and his face is all messed up, and like the whole thing. And and I gotta say, it was a bit of a tone shift for me. I was like, what's happening? This movie was like I was enjoying this movie. It was kind of being jokey, and now they're like taking this real serious. And so I do feel like this movie is a tone that's gonna affect different people in different ways. Like maybe if you grew up in a a religious household, but I don't know, maybe, but you also have a sense of humor, you're gonna like definitely vibe with this movie. But I also feel like it really depends on who you are, what sect of religion you are. Are you gonna be okay with this, or are you gonna find this really offensive? I don't know. So I'm very curious what the reactions to this are gonna be. For me, I've got a little bit of whiplash, because I'm like, one minute you're like kind of being satirical and I'm really into it, and then the next minute it's like, oh no, they're just doing the whole he's just being tortured now. Okay, like we're just watching this for like a good 5 to 8 minutes of just torture. Like it's not even like a joke. They're just doing it, and I'm like, okay. So yeah, I do feel like that kind of needs a warning in the movie, where I'm like, all right, just so you're aware, the third act they actually do it. But then they do still try to sprinkle in a couple jokes. Benedict Cumberbatch makes a surprise appearance and in a pretty funny turn. And yeah, of course, this movie does still kind of hold a lot of pro-faith things. So, even though they do hold a lot of satirical elements, where like he actually goes to what's her Mother Mary, Jesus's dad or mom, Jesus's mom's, he goes to her house. He's like, okay, so tell me what actually happened. Like, you were a virgin, right? And she's like, no, yeah, here's literally, the angel came down and he said, I'm gonna have a son, and then I had a son, and he's like, okay, really, you're sticking with that story? That's really what you so the movie does not hold back on like poking a little bit of fun, but then at the same time it definitely seems to have like a pro-faith, pro-religion kind of message by the end of it, because he does kind of learn to have faith, if not in Jesus necessarily, but at least in himself. But also, yeah, the movie does fully like show like, yeah, but Jesus was real, by the way. Like they show like him using powers and stopping rocks and like the whole thing, so yeah, this is definitely a movie that's gonna hit different people in different ways. I think I would have preferred it a little bit more if it was just a straight comedy, because it feels like it's a half comedy, like it's like almost there, and then this is the way I told my fiance in the car. I was like, okay, here's what it feels like. It feels like they had two writers in this movie. One writer was just comedic voice, just like, oh, wouldn't this be funny if he talked to Mary? Wouldn't this be funny if he talked to one of the apostles and one of his brothers was an apostle, and they had like this, these stupid arguments of funny situations that you could do with this concept. And then the other writer was just like full serious religion. It was just like, okay, but here's actually what's going to happen in the crucifixion scene, and then they did this, and then they had to pull it up by the ropes and he's screaming, and I'm like, what what okay. So anyways, I don't know, for me, on the whole, I liked the performances. I liked a lot of the characters in the movie. A lot of the comedic beats really work. But ultimately, I think because it kind of goes a little weird in the third act for me, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I did still enjoy it, and I do think that, especially if you come from a religious background, but you have a little bit of a sense of humor, I think you're gonna enjoy this one a lot. For me, I'm like, it's okay. It's it's definitely great at some parts, but I think other parts, I'm like, I don't understand what tone you're going for here. It's kind of missing me. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting film, and I'm curious to see how the internet reacts to this one, because I can already picture some segments being really offended by some of the things they do, but then other people loving that this is finally like a, hey, it's okay to be kind of jokey about these subjects, but also not insult it kind of thing. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how this gets reacted to. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.